Hi, this is Pamela Gropey Art, and welcome to another painting tutorial. This is going to be a snowman welcome sign. And you notice I have two little easy snowmen on here, a couple of little fir trees. And we are going to start with our lettering. And this is really, it might look darker than a dark blue on the screen, but this is really a very, very dark blue. And we've added some snow on the top. This is a gray background. So let's get started. I already transferred the lettering on here, and I was just going to show you that this is perfect for first starting lettering because it's great that it will be imperfect, and you don't want straight edges and whatever because these are kind of wonky, fun letters. This is Midnight Folk Art multi-surface. You can use any very dark blue. You could do this in red. Now reds are hard to get opaque, so you'd have to do a few more coats. You could also do it in black if you prefer. So let's get started. I'm going to use, what size should I use? I think I'll use a number 12 flat. I dampen my brush, and then I dampen my brush, and then I just use a towel to get some of the excess water off of it, and that prevents the paint from becoming too runny. So sometimes these darker colors are extra thick. In the plaid folk art multi-surface, they are very, very thick. So load your brush. You don't want it overloaded, but you want a good amount of paint in it. And you just follow the outline of the lettering. As I said, do not worry about being perfect. These letters are wonky, and you can start by using the chisel edge if you want to outline, if that helps you, and then just fill in. You just want to kind of get the shape. And the board is rough. This is a cedar fence board. So it's much rougher than other boards, and this back side has not been, you could smooth it out some with sandpaper. This one has not been, and that's okay with me. So just fill it in, and all of the letters will be filled in this way. Nothing major, nothing too difficult. And that's what's kind of fun with these letters here. They're just big and fat, and you don't have to be very precise. Some lettering, it does look better if it's more precise, but this one is not one of them. And that's why I did it for this, so that people who've not done hand lettering, a lot of people will stencil. That's great. I started out stenciling, and then I got tired of filling in the bridges and paying for the stencils. So I just started printing out my lettering like this. So I had a guideline to follow. And then you see how my brush went out that way and it made it lumpy? That's great. It just gives it character. Anyway, so just fill in, let that paint flow from your brush, and enjoy the process. Enjoy just adding color. And this is great. If you have a shaky hand, embrace how it makes it a little bit different. I do not have a steady hand whatsoever, so it gets pretty wonky sometimes. And the beauty of this dark, dark blue is it covers very well. I see a piece of ink still showing. Now I have a whole tutorial on how I transfer patterns. I will link it here so that you can find it more easily. And that's how I transferred this on here using the pattern, which I will make available, and graphite paper. I know a lot of people like to use chalk on paper or what have you. I just found that to be so messy, And there was an extra step included, which graphite paper is fairly inexpensive, and this time savings to me is worth that bit of expense. Or if you are good at hand lettering, go for it. I will say I am not. Sorry for the sheen and the lighting, but let's get over here. But that's what happens in the winter because I have to use auxiliary lighting and it creates those bright spots in the camera. You notice I'm doing this fairly swiftly because I just want to get this done. I want this to be a quick video. If you need to take a little bit more time, go for it. You notice this background is darker than the other one. Use whatever background color you want. I find that's a good way to use up some paint colors that for some reason I haven't used in other things. I just want to use them up. You can mix colors, etc. Just adding a little bit more color in areas that look a little thin. Totally up to you. I just have the color out here, so I'm just going to use it up. Cover over any graphite lines. If I wanted to, I could come back in with an eraser. The Magic Rub, the white ones, those ones work the best for me in removing the graphite lines. Just so you know. Okay, I think we are good to go on this. So I'm going to clean my brush and I'm going to get some white. I'm going to go ahead and fly speck this while we wait for it to dry. Now, fly specking, I've showed you before, is just a matter of loading inky paint onto your brush and tapping it on another brush to create the specks. In other tutorials that I've done fly specking, I show you with a toothbrush. I do like using a toothbrush. Now let me get another brush to tap this across. I'm going to test it on here. Seems like, oh, see, I got a little bit too big on that one. But that's easily fixed. So I'm going to go up around here. I want a little bit more on that M. Now you notice I haven't even reloaded this brush with white. So there is the fly specking. Now I think the toothbrush, and why I do prefer it, it seems to disperse it a little bit better. Now, like right here, this one, I don't like that big blotch there. So I just kind of smeared it out. I'm really just kind of picking up some of the paint while trying to avoid smearing too much of the darker blue. Now, if I don't like this, once it dries, I'll go over it with the darker blue again. So that's so easily fixed. And if you want to, if there's any areas like in between, like this gray, you could go back with that color and go over anything you don't like. But right now I'm going to leave that be. Now the trees in the background. I have a whole tutorial on just these fir trees. They're very, very simple. I did them either with a round brush or a filbert, but this set I'm going to do with the filbert. And this is a number 8 Royal Majestic filbert. And I will get the green on my palette and we will proceed with our tree. So we'll turn this around. So I have a spot for the green. I'm going to use sap. You could also use thicket, any dark green that you prefer. And let me show you the picture again. go this way. So here is our trees on each end. So that's what we're going to do now. So let's put this back down here and make sure I'm in the camera on the one side. And I'm going to start with the dark green, and then I'm going to add citrus. You could use Hauser green light. You could use anything. I like the citrus, but as I said, any lighter green. You could go with the classic green, which is not quite as light. So our snowman's going to sit here. So I'm going to make the tree come right about here. Now I'm following the side of the board with my fingernail. It's still leaning a little bit, but it's okay. It's just a tree. So we want the layers to go from bottom to top. And I think I kind of want it just like this wide. So I give myself some little placements. And I'm just going to add just some strokes like this. Now my round brush made longer strokes, but that's okay. You see how I'm layering them a little bit? I'll add some of the lighter green so you can see how it layers over it. Get going right on the middle. And you're just creating a triangle shape with your brush. And because it's got the rounded tip, it creates a bit rounder shaped strokes. Now I could also show you how I could do it with the flat if you didn't want to do it with the filbert. I'm just going to get a little bit of the light green in there too. And you can do chisel edge strokes just like this. They're just narrower, but they work. They work just fine. And when you want them a little bit lighter, you follow with the light green on your brush. Now remember, this is just a fun design. There's nothing written in stone that has to look exactly like a tree. It just gives the indication of the tree. Your snowman and the lettering is the star of the show. So there we have our tree, or indication of a tree. So we go with the other one. Now I will have a sketch of this for you so that you can follow a little bit of a sketch. The pressure creates a different depth, widths. I should get it. I'm kind of have my hand in the way now, huh? You can even do it left-handed. Probably will have to get some more on my brush, or on my palette, I mean. Just layer them on up. I'm still getting my hand in the way, aren't I? But you saw it on the other one. So really this one is just the same. And just add a few more in there with a lighter color. And there we have it. If you see an area you think you need a little bit lighter up there, go ahead and add it. Now remember, trees are not perfect either. So there we have one tree and we have the other tree. You will never have two exactly alike. I tell you that often, so give up any desire to be perfect. Now I'm going to have to get out the blow dryer because I don't want to get the blue into my snowman, and I'm going to pounce my snowman in and the snow along the top. So it is mostly dry. Might be a few damp spots, but it feels pretty dry to me. Well, the greens are still a little bit dry, but that's okay. We'll work with it. If I get some on my snowman, it's not the end of the world. I'm using this scruffy, this is a 3/4 inch scruffy 1-stroke brush. You could also use a sponge if you prefer. These are the little sea sponges I got from Hobby Lobby. There's also Plaid makes some, or had some available. And here's the package of those. So natural sponge. All I want to do, I'll just show you the sponge really quick. Now I'm just going to make 2 circles, and I'm just going to, this is dry by the way, make his body. And see, got a little green in there. I'm not sweating it. I can go over it later with some more white. And then his head. Now he's leaning. You see how he's leaning? I'll come in, this was a little too green, wet, so I will finish that up and make his body less off later. So once the green dries. Okay, scruffy brush. Oh, I have a blonde hair in there. Scruffy brush, and we will do the same. We are going to just make his body. Again, I got a little bit of green in there, but it's not the end of the world. I'm going to be a little more careful because I don't want his head to get too wide and start to go out there, but that's okay. It's not the main event over there, so I'm not really worried about that being a little bit out there. It looks like just some snow is flying off of him. So there we have Mr. Snowman. And if I want to add a little dimension, I'll just tap a little corner, you see a little edge into the darker blue. I work it into the white on the edge of the brush. You could do this with a sponge too, and I'm just going to add it right along the edge. Still a lot of green coming up through there. And if you want to really see it fast, make it a little darker. That works. Let me see, we're going to have a scarf on him probably. Maybe this side of his head will be a little bit darker, just to give him a little shading. Same with him. We'll shade him on the same side. My board is crooked. I think he needs a little more base. He needs, and I might get into the green again, but I got his head a little larger than I would have liked, but that's okay. We'll just make his bottom bigger. I need some more white on my brush. Okay. And we can make him looking up, and that's why he's kind of leaning, whoops, I'm sorry. That's why he's kind of leaning this way. He could be looking up, so he's leaning his head back. That works too. Learn to work with or how you fix mistakes. You will always make them. Now we can let that dry, and I can come back in with more white to brighten it a little bit more. But for now, I will take my sponge. Now sponges, I will admit, are a little bit messier because they don't have a handle. So I'm just touching some snow along the top of the lettering. So it's sitting up there. Just sponge it in lightly. Less is more. You can always add more later if you desire. Taking away is a bit more difficult, but doable. Very doable. All right. Now the trees are still too wet to add snow to them. You don't even have to add snow. If you want that contrast of just the green, that works. On here you see I did add snow to them. But again, it is not an absolute necessity. All right, so we've got that, the snow on there. You want to put it right on the top of that part of the E, as if it caught on the shelf there. That works. Okay, I'm going to put my sponge into the water so it doesn't dry, and I'm going to have to go ahead and dry this before I proceed any further. So I want this one over here to have a little more white to be brighten it up. The dark is coming through. I have another scruffy. It's the same size as the last one. I just put the last one in the water. And scruffies don't work well once they're wet. So you end up just making mud. And you see how much brighter that's coming up? I can make him bottom a little flatter where he's sitting on the ground. Okay, and now this one. This one too. I want them nice and bright. They are snowmen. Don't worry, that shading will show through. So you'll still have the dimension from the previous shading. So there we go. We've got them all colored in. Now if you wanted to do a little touch of snow, and I have it where I'm just touching the edges on some of the branches. And thankfully now the green is all mostly dry. So if you want snow, tap it in there very gently. I'm going to leave that one without snow. Alrighty, I think we are done with the scruffies. And we must let this white dry because we're going to start putting in his details, like buttons, arms, eyes, etc. So probably the buttons I could get done because there are a couple of dots. So let me get my red. So here's the red for the heart buttons. You could do just circular buttons with black or the dark blue, but I'm going to put in a couple of heart buttons. Hopefully the white has dried enough. And I did 2 dots, well 3 dots, and then I connect it. Now it's still a little bit wet underneath there, and I can come in with the brush here. And this is rather on the larger side, but that's okay. This boy's got some big buttons. And if you want to connect them, like I said, with the brush here, I'll just do it with the brush. Just carefully with the corner, bring them together. Now the other one was much smaller. And that white's bleeding through. But that's how you do the buttons. Very easy. You could do it with a liner brush and do smaller buttons. That works. I'll show you on the opposite side. I know it's upside down, but you see how little those are tiny. And theirs were tiny. Now these, they have arms. His are up. His are holding a mug. So let me get these dry so I don't have to fight with the wet paint, and we will come back and do the eyes and nose. So let's put on his carrot nose. Now I'm going to, this is the #1 script liner that comes in the 10-pack along with that #12 that I had been using. These are the Donna Dewberry 1-stroke. I use them a lot because they really work. Okay, and they last a long time. So let me look at my, he's kind of facing, okay, facing the lettering. You can make his carroty nose as long or as short. It's just kind of a triangular shape. And then the end I always kind of make rounded. It gives it a little hint of roundness. And there's his nose. And I will do this guy's nose. They're going to kind of be facing each other. Make sure you pull your brush to a point, load it, pull it to a point, and that way you don't get too much paint on here. And we'll do the same. We're a little rounded, and then just fill it in. add a little bit more later if you don't feel like you have the depth of color. Orange is like red, not very opaque, and just be careful. I just made his nose extra bumpy because I'm in a hurry. Alrighty, let's leave that to dry and we'll go on to the eyeballs. So on this snowman here, I really didn't like the large hearts, and I just went over it with some wicker white in my paintbrush, and I covered it. Now, his head is just a little too dark still for me, so I'm going to go back in, even though I have his carrot nose on there, with a pouncer and some wicker white, and I'm just going to highlight a little more. That dark just keeps coming through, and I want these to be bright, bright snowmen. And just get that in there. I could go right over his nose again, and I'll probably have to put another coat of white on to obscure the buttons, or when I put his hands on or what have you, I could put a vest on him or whatever decor I want. But that is how I take care of him. And I just kind of got in a hurry. That's all. I didn't take my time as I should have, and that's what caused it for me to get just a little too crazy with it all. So you can take your time. Let the coats between dry thoroughly, then you can see how everything is coming along and do it better than I did. So there, we've got that white in on both of these. And I just might touch just a little bit on here to brighten little spots of the snow up. And on the tree, if you want to add a little bit on the tree. As I said before, I'm going to leave that one alone. I'm going to rinse out my brush. Got the sun coming in at an angle, so sorry for the shadows. And I will tell you that scruffy brushes take a little bit of time to clean. So the sponges work as well as the scruffy to me, but they are easier to clean. So just a little hint there on that. So I'm just getting that dried out in case I want to use it later. I'm drying it out on my towel. Okay. Let me see if I can block some of that light. So let's go ahead and put in his eyes. I'm going to use the number one script liner, and I'm just going to put in his little dot eyes. Now, my licorice black lately has been so thick, it may not do what I want it to do. Let me go I have some Ceram Coat. That one, the Ceram Coat or Ceram Coat, however it's pronounced, is an excellent black as well. It's also made actually by Plaid Folk Art, but it's a little bit thinner. So sometimes it's a little easier, like when I do my lettering on signs, I use that black when I make black letters. So anyways, I added a little water to this to make it a little more flowable. And I'll try not to get my hair in the way. I need to put it up. Okay, we're just going to make a couple oval eyes. And another one. This one is on top of the nose, so I'm not going to make it come all the way down. The nose cuts across. And there is his nose. Now in my other ones, I did dot, 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 like you're doing little pieces of coal for his mouth. And then also one I did just a little, the last one, which has a little snowman with a cardinal bird on his little bucket hat. But, and that's a larger size on a canvas. I just did a little smiley face. A little smiley face. There. You could do that in any color you want. Now that his nose, or the white is dry, I am going to go ahead and back in and put in his nose again. This is dry right here. That's why I'm not just dipping into that, in case you were wondering. So let's get this going here. And do his nose again. I can see there's a drip on the ferrule of my brush, and that can run down and cause problems. So I'm just dabbing that off. And then I'm going to come forward with the brush in a triangular shape. And I didn't get as high as his eye, but that's fine. That works really well. Now let's do this snowman's little nose. No eye on here yet, but since I have the orange out, I'm just going to do it. And there's his nose. Rinse my brush. And one more time for the eyeballs. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to bang my tripod there. And we will do the same for his little eyes. So, trying to make sure my hand's not in the camera. Just little ovals. You could do round if you preferred. And his little smile. Now let me see, I'll try to put the little dots in, but it may not be dry enough, so we'll see how that goes. So they're kind of looking, I can have him looking upwards, so the little dots would go up there. And this one could be looking downwards or to the side, and we'll just put the dots over there. So there we have the little eyes. And let's see. Do we want the heart buttons? Oh, why not? Let's go ahead and do the heart buttons. I'm going to do them this time with the liner brush. We'll keep them close together. We won't let them grow like I did the last one. There, that's a better size, I think. Very nice, very nice. So we could decide what kind of hats. We could go ahead and put the buttons on here. I think I'll just give him some coal buttons with the black. And one thing about coal buttons, their chunks of coal are not round. They're just in. Make this one a little bit bigger. Whoops. See, that's what happens when you have water in your ferrule. On your ferrule, in your ferrule, it will blop like that, but we're not going to worry about it. So let's move on to their arms or hat. Let's see, what kind of hat do we want on them? You know what? Let's do earmuffs. Earmuffs on this guy right here, and that will be done with the smaller scruffy that is in the multi-pack, and I will get mine and be right back. Let's do some earmuffs on this little guy, and I have the smaller scruffy. And I'm just dabbing it. This is Look at Me Blue. I thought this one needed another color. Could have done red, you could do orange, but I'm doing blue. So there, I've loaded my scruffy, I've pounced it off a little bit, and we'll put his earmuffs right here. You just make it a circular shape. Doesn't have to be perfect, just a little circular shape. And then I'm going to dab one side in the white. And then we'll just add it to one side. So if the sun's hitting over there. And I just rubbed out my brush in case I want to use it over on the other guy. I didn't get it wet because I only have the one available right there. And then I'm going to use a touch of the black with the blue on the 1 inch, or not one, the number 1 liner, script liner. And then we're just going to attach, we're going to make a little arc over his head to attach these earmuffs to each other. So now he has simple little earmuffs. Now we could do something different for this guy. We could give him a little hat or leave his head bare, maybe put a little tiny bird on top. You choose what you want to do with this one. I'm going to go ahead and give him some earmuffs too. I'm going to wipe out my scruffy. I'm just wiping it out on a brush. You see, it still has some of the blue in it. And I think I'm going to make him bright. I'm going to make him have orange earmuffs. And I'm just going to tap on. And I'm overlapping his head a little ways. And I'm going to just touch a tiny bit in the red to make them a little bit darker on one side. And I just go around the edge. And so he's got orange earmuffs. Now, you see how the orange is not opaque? Later, I could go back over that if it bothered me. And you know what? You can just let it be transparent if you like. And let's see. I'm going to do the same. I'm going to do a little bit of the black. The blue will just dilute the black, so it's just not quite so black, if that makes sense. And we're going to do the same. You're just going to make a simple arc over his head to meet that other side. And I went over it a little too far, but that would be a good reason to go over it with some more orange. So I'm going to try that, see if I can just dab in some orange there. I covered over that black that was so making a mess there. All right, let us get some brown for their arms. Just want to get them in there for you. So we're gonna, I was first gonna go over here and fix this. I got some white on my liner and I was just gonna go around this area where the water made that smudge over. Still a bit wet, so it's smearing a bit, but that's okay. It all blends in the long run. So I got real brown here. You could also use burnt umber. Any dark brown that you have will work. Just rub it in there. I'm using the number 1 liner again. And you can just have him has his arms coming down. And my other one, on the other side, I had him holding a mug. And you could do that too if you wanted, but I didn't want to make this too long, too difficult. So we'll just give him some little branchy hands. Little branchy hands. Call it good. If you want to add a bit of highlight, touch in the white. Just streak in some color there. There we go. There's number 1. Now let's go back into the brown. And this one's, he's going to be raising his hands up like he's cheering. Yay! And you can leave him without hands if you wanted to. You could put a little bird in his hand. Anything you wanted to. There. So now you have a simple little snowman welcome sign. Very easy to do. And when this is all dry, then I will go over it with some Varathane. That protects it from winter weather or the cold and outside. So you could hang it on your front porch if you wanted. Give it as a gift. Whatever you would like to do. I'm sure anybody would love to have a fun winter snowman welcome sign.